Yeah, so we are here today to talk about decentralized AI. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kyle Schenps. I am the Vice President of Public Policy at a company called Foundry. Foundry is deeply involved in a wide variety of things in the crypto space and especially in the Bitcoin space. Most famously, we have the largest Bitcoin mining pool in the world with over 30% of the hash rate. And then we also are engaged in a lot of institutional services as well. Our main goal is to empower decentralized infrastructure, whether that's in the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin mining space, or others. And one of those aspects that we have been delving into is the concept of decentralized AI.
And I'm Steve.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I am Steve Lupien. I'm the director of the University of Wyoming Center for Blockchain and Digital Innovation. And this is kind of my party, so welcome. And glad to have you all here. This is our prime event of the year for the Blockchain Center. And this is an opportunity for the center here on campus to accomplish a number of things. One is, this is one of our, as events go, this is our largest fundraiser. And so of course I want to thank the generosity of all the sponsors who are on your badge. So please, if you see those people, thank them, and because this wouldn't be possible without them. But also, the important part, there's two other aspects of this, of the Stampede that I think are important. Number one is we're able to get thought leaders together and share what's really happening in our industry. And because a lot of conferences, you're just too busy to be able to do what we're really doing here. And so besides this that was running all day today, we also did get Bitcoin miners together this morning over in Co-Library to just kind of get in a room together and just agree on some ways to deal with policy and things like that. And the other important aspect of this event is to help the university understand what's important to the commercial community. It doesn't make sense to develop programs that our students participate in that you guys don't care about. Okay, I mean that is the most pointless thing a university could really do. So what's important to us is hearing from our industry leaders, and there's a number of industry leaders here in the room and on this panel that their input is really crucial to making sure that the programs we create and the graduates that we produce are really the tip of the spear of what is needed in the industry. So I thank you all for that. So
and I will add that you're going to be surprised, but this particular discussion is I think, Steve, you'll be surprised as well, may have the most direct possible opportunity for students. And
do tell.
Well, so when we're talking about decentralized AI, if I can kick things off, you'll hear a bit about AI from Bitcoin miners, and this is different from what we're going to talk about today. In the Bitcoin mining space, when they're talking about AI, they're talking about using the infrastructure that they already have, right? Their access to power, their data centers, and partnering with usually large AI companies, some of the big five we've seen, and this is a valuable and profitable thing that they're doing. What we're here to talk about is decentralized AI. This is for people who want to build or learn AI, but don't have the capital to invest in NVIDIA H100s, who don't have access to Meta's data farms or Google's data farms. This is for small businesses and, in my opinion, universities. And that's part of what Foundry is starting to explore, and hopefully someday in the future, University of Wyoming will be one of the, the tip of the spear on this as well.
Well, let me ask you a question, because, it's not going to be a surprise to many people in this room, but I'm old. And, I can honestly look you in the eye and say, I remember running a division of Land O'Lakes, the butter and cheese company. And I was with them for about 10 years, from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s. And I remember sitting in a board meeting and having the board say to me, why do we need a presence on the internet? What is that going to do for us? By the way, I think somebody actually asked the question too. Isn't the internet just for drug dealers and money launderers? Okay, but so I've seen a number of tech cycles, and so I saw the internet tech cycle and was a part of it. I saw the internet boom of 2000, or the .com boom of 2000. We've certainly seen, some exciting boom times in our crypto space, and we're seeing, and what typically happens in those, and this is a question, I'm going to get there, I promise. Okay? Remember, I'm a college professor. They pay me by the word. Yeah. And what I've seen is a predictable pattern where, it's normally the early adopters, the new entrants that come in that start in an industry, okay? And sometimes that also involves fraudsters and nefarious folks. But then what tends to happen is then the industry kind of stabilizes. And then the big legitimate players figure out what the killer apps are, okay? And that's what drives the industry where it is. I mean, the internet really kind of took off because of the MySpaces and you all remember MySpace? Anybody here have a MySpace page? Am I the only one that had a MySpace page? Okay. So my question to you is, we've all heard the stories, and there's people in this room who have said, I started Bitcoin mining in my dorm room, and, or, I outfitted my closet in my bedroom with, some Bitcoin mining. And I love the story about, a dear friend of the university, Marshall Long, who started building Bitcoin mining rigs using peach crates as the frame. And he built a bunch for himself, and somebody came along and said, I'll buy those off you. And that's how he started his business. But then, the big players took off, okay? AI was different. AI started with the big players. And I've never met anybody who said, I bought an H100 and stuck it in my closet.
Yeah.
Okay. And this legitimate question, I'm really curious. Is there room for AI to kind of go backwards down that path? That's why I was so interested in this segment. This segment was one of the ones I was most excited about hearing, because I was looking at the pattern going, this is not what we're used to. And can mom and pop and college student and university, can we really make an impact now that the big five are really controlling this new technology? I'm really interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think There was an element in the development of some of these companies, especially like NVIDIA, right? And of them adapting to what was coming, right? They started, I don't know exactly how they started, but I know that, their current machines used for AI are, have their basis in video gaming, right? And so they're adapting from there. But I would say that there is room because of the inaccessibility that the big five companies are putting onto the market. And so if you're a small business, or if you're a student or a professor looking to teach students or have a club where they're learning how to build an AI subnet, for instance, or to do machine learning, you can't do that on Meta's proprietary system, right? They're using that for their massive end user products that they are creating. All right, if you want to participate in a system where you are able to learn and build and machine learn and share and distribute compute power, you can use these burgeoning decentralized networks. And so I think you're right. Are they going to break through? Maybe there will be an app on a decentralized AI platform that gets headway and is bought by one of those big companies. Are they going to compete with end user stuff where your average person is just using it? Maybe not. But your average student learning,
right?
Your average small business trying to build their own thing to maybe one day sell it or to do their own thing. Who knows? I think that's where the need comes for these decentralized protocols. And part of what these decentralized protocols are doing, and I'm not going to advocate for any one specifically because Foundry is involved in several, but you do have, and I will mention a few though, you do have something like Akash, right? And Akash is, the way they smartly advertise themselves is Airbnb for compute power, right? And so if you have, your gaming system and you're not using it, you can sell that compute power into this decentralized system, and somebody else who's trying to build a model for an AI system, their own, they can borrow that compute, right? They can pay you into that system for that compute. And so you have lots of people who are doing this, including Foundry. And so it's kind of an interesting thought process because it eliminates a lot of things we're seeing from the big AI companies, which gets into politics, which you and I both have an interest in. But when you're talking about political bias, which will be, we've seen is taking place in the big five AI, when you're thinking about censorship, a wide variety of things, a decentralized system gets around those by rewarding the most truth.
Well, and look, that is, a core ethos of most of us in this room, which is, how people get involved in digital assets often. I guess my question is, I completely get the, from an educational standpoint, and I'm speaking, representing the university, I see where, having small clusters, wrong term, but you know what I mean, that are providing processing power to AI can be very experiential for the students. You roll up your sleeves and this is, I'm a firm believer, and anyone who's taken a class from me, and there's several of you in the room will recognize this next phrase. I always say, well, do you know how you learn to start a company? You start a company. And, you want a crash course in learning all those details, you just do it. You don't say, I don't know how to do it, you just do it. And so I completely agree with the rolling up the sleeves and stuff. But can we ever, in a decentralized way, provide enough computing power to be relevant would be my first question. And what seems to be different about AI, and you are much more expert in this than I am, is, Bitcoin mining, let's use that as an example, started out where, you could plug your computer in your dorm room that you use for your, for your schoolwork, and when you're not using it for schoolwork, it would be mining Bitcoin. And there are tons of stories of wires running all over dorm rooms, and early on nobody knew what Bitcoin mining was, so these early miners just said to their resident assistants, "Oh, I'm doing a computer science project," and no one knew what it was, and you could do that. But then we moved past CPUs to GPUs, and it got a little trickier. Then we went to FPGAs, which became trickier, and now we're into ASICs. It seems to me like AI went right to ASIC. There, I mean, I don't have an H100. I mean, I don't know anybody in this room's got an H100. Well, you probably do.
Foundry does.
What?
Foundry does.
Well, exactly. See, I knew there'd be one person, but you get my point. Is is this kind of like an extension of like Moore's law in a strange sort of way, where new technologies are always going to be, launched out of the reach of everyday people? But the reason why I'm so intrigued by doing a distributed approach is, at the same time, I wonder how much computing power sits idle a lot of the time, okay? I mean, there are 3 computers in that bag right now. None of those 3 are doing a darn thing right now, okay? Is that the opportunity?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, especially if it's valid, maybe not from a laptop, but for instance, somebody had I was in Calgary for a conference speaking there not too long ago, and a guy who was friends with one of the organizers happened to come, and he told me he had 3 virtual reality arcades. Okay. And he's like, the compute power, like, I don't, it's closed for 60-70% of the week. Mm-hmm. So like that compute power, stuff like that is just sitting around. And that happens a lot. If somebody has a sophisticated gaming system in their basement and they're out and not using it for 12, 14 hours a day, they can put that out there for this Airbnb compute type of thing. And it's not just the compute power. What we're seeing is protocols developing that are incentivization networks. And I'm talking to you as somebody who's pretty much a Bitcoiner, and this is the first real thing that I've recognized the importance, because I've seen the influence that AI will have in politics and in our lives. I mean, it's very evident to everybody, and so I really do think that for small businesses, for students to be able to use these systems, incentivized systems that have, and what I mean is, for instance, there's one protocol that comes to mind where it has a whole operational way of people validating and mining and building, right? And they're building AI models. But this, at its current price, has $800 million worth of this crypto token, right? That is going per year, right, at its current price. And so if you're a university or a small business and you want to teach your students and you want to, or build something for, let's say, some sort of AI competition. I'm sure that there will be many in the future for universities. And not only build and do that, but also if you build a good product, earn as you're doing it, especially for state schools, right? Because yes, MIT can probably afford a huge racks of H100s, but most schools do not have access to that. And so if you're able to tap into these protocols, learn on them, earn while you're doing it to sustain the very program of learning, this is, I think, a huge step forward. And it's something you can't do with these big 5 companies because they keep it all to themselves.
Right. Well, and I want to bring up an interesting other point. One of the things I really like to talk about in Bitcoin is, I believe Bitcoin is also a vehicle to keep governments honest, okay? If if there's a strong alternative to a manipulated fiat currency, then maybe that government will think twice before they manipulate their currency. And one of the things I find intriguing and I think hopefully a powerful influence in decentralized AI is right now it is 5 actors who many have either agendas or are subject to the agendas of others. You know, can we through this, you know, Airbnb approach, you know, gain enough influence that, you know, that it keeps the industry honest, because maybe we're smaller, but we're still an alternative. And, you know, and if the big 5 keep going down, you know, a particular, you know, direction, then, you know, here we are, you know, the unwashed masses, you know, having influence and being able to say, no, you know, here's an alternative for those people that want to opt out of, my word, a corrupt system. And, you know, we don't ever have to be as big as any one of the big 5. We just need to be big enough. You know, we just need to, you know, through our influence, be able to keep the big 5 and maybe some government actors a little bit honest. Do you think there's enough, you know, private processing power out there that we could ever fill that role?
Yeah, I do, and I think the more, you know, it can be somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? In the sense that the more success people are having using it, the more compute gets donated, the more investment into actual machines too, right? These H100s are, you know, or any sort of compute power machine are apolitical. So if a university or whoever wants to use it for a decentralized system, they can use it. It's not biased towards a big company. And so I do think there is that opportunity. I also think from a university perspective, because I know this is very important to you, the pipeline, not only in terms of what should we be teaching, but how do we employ people?
Right.
To take a, you know, I'm somewhat prone towards adversarial relationship with the big 5 sometimes, but I will say that, you know.
That's why we like you, by the way.
There's also an element of, like, you know, students who are learning on decentralized systems who are actually, you know, doing the work, figuring this stuff out, will be very marketable even to some of those big 5 companies, can hopefully take some of what they've learned from the decentralized sector into that. Because universities who do not take advantage of this, they'll just be learning from a book and not from doing.
Right. Well, and everyone who knows me knows my position on experiential learning. Let me bring up one last point before we open the floor for some questions. Wyoming is a unique place with a unique economy. And, you know, one of the things I think helped Wyoming was when many industries kind of chose a remote path. You know, one of the challenges, you know, being a faculty member here at the University of Wyoming was seeing my graduates leave the state to go and get employment elsewhere, because look, you know, Wyoming is an extraction state, and, you know, if you're gonna want to work in that industry, we got you covered. But, you know, for many others, you know, it's a little bit more difficult. I like the gig aspect of decentralizing computing power. I'm also a big fan of diversifying income. And, you know, again, is this an opportunity for employees in a state like Wyoming? They're working one job, okay, and when they're working their job, they're probably, or at least hopefully, not on their gaming machine. And, you know, is their gaming machine right now being put to work You know, I've always kind of, you know, one of the things that intrigues me about a self-driving car is I love the idea. I drive my car from Cheyenne to Laramie. I stick it in a parking spot. It sits there for 8 or 9 hours a day, and then I get in it and I drive it again. You know, I'd love to be able to say to my car, go make me money. Go, I mean, anybody here try to get an Uber from the airport knows exactly what I'm talking about here in Laramie, okay? Go make me money. Is there an aspect of this that you think is powerful too?
Absolutely, because especially where this whole discussion is around AI, right? It is more relevant than ever that our technology has the potential to replace human capacity and human employment in some respects. And the more that we can make our technology work for us, the better we are going to be. And I think that decentralized AI allows the average person to have that bit of a foray into a small business, that foray to learn what this technology is. I think this is kind of the case of, you know, maybe somebody, 30 years ago learning how to code, right? I think that's where we're at now. If you can kind of learn this technology a little bit through these decentralized systems, if you can get on and mess around a little bit, I think it may work. And again, these incentivized structures that are built into some of these protocols, OpenTensor is one of the biggest ones. You're going on, and if you're doing a good job, you are rewarded. If you're making a bad product and messing up, you will not be rewarded because other people are on there looking at it and they go, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. So it's a great place to learn, and then also it's a great place to kind of figure out where the right, which path is right. And it's also, obviously, there's a collaborative nature to it. I tend to think of these protocols, the big five, they have the entire Ford conveyor belt assembly system, and they own every part of it, right? And at the end, they come out with the product, and that's what we get to see. That's what you use on your chat GPT, right? With this decentralized system, there's a central kind of conveyor belt that is the protocol, and everybody gets to kind of add their part onto it. They can create a subnet. Foundry, for instance, created a subnet that uses a predictive model for the S&P 500, right? And so that was one of our things, and if people find that useful, they will validate and we will earn from that. And there's a wide variety of ways. Unfortunately, our VP of AI could not be here. He would have a lot more. If there are people much smarter than myself on this, I can connect you with them after if you have technical questions. But we are working with Rochester Institute of Technology on developing some of this because our headquarters is in Rochester, New York. But we are starting to have these conversations.
Temporarily, until you relocate to Wyoming.
Until we relocate. That's right. But yes, I believe that this is an example of, like you said, figuring out a way for the technology to work for you. Because if you're not part of that, we run the risk of leaving our car out in the parking lot for 9 hours and not earning, or having our, hopefully not, but having ourselves replaced.
Right. So, wrap-up question. Speed answer. How far away is this? Is the time now?
I really do think the time is now to get involved in this decentralized system. And there's a whole wide varieties of ways that our company and others are trying to, and Foundry and myself specifically, because I'm in public policy, I believe that not only should this be for a public good, but we should be doing something that the government can understand. And I truly believe that universities are the place where this belongs. The universities that maybe don't have enough, like you said, for a rack of H100s and want to tap into a system that allows their students to learn, that allows them to build, without those hindrances.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much. Does anybody have a question? Yeah.
So to follow up on that make me money point, so first, to make me money, I don't care if it's running AI or if it's doing other computational tasks. If I'm just running out my computing space and time, Number two, I do want assurances that illegal activities are not going on through the network that's now running through
Right.
my computer.
Right.
Number three, I probably want to be paid in US dollars unless I'm some real crypto enthusiast. And number four, I want to make considerably more money than what the additional electrical power is costing me.
And I think I'm going to, let me try that one first. I think that also is why it's going to be important to make sure that we choose the right Airbnb hosting partner. Because I think almost all of those get answered by the protocol and, you know, the partner. I'm not assuming that we're just all going to be throwing our computers on, you know, a nebulous network without some sort of coordinating entity, and perhaps Foundry. And so I think that's going to be, or a university, you know, and so I would suspect that those are all going to be answered, you know, by the protocol and the delivery vehicle that allows that to happen. Because I agree with you. I mean, please step in. I mean.
No, those are actually really astute points, and they're stuff that this is incredibly nascent technology. I mean, even Bitcoin, you've heard throughout this entire conference, is nascent, and this has been around for 15 years with incredible experts and books written. AI is even, you know, at least AI as we know it now is even newer, and decentralized AI is even newer. So to get to a couple points, paid in US dollars, that's not happening right now. It's usually through some sort of incentivized token, which you would have to then trade for US dollars on a centralized exchange. The biggest thing you brought up is something that is going to be a battle with the government on, which is the trade-off between, you know, freedom and a lack of censorship and security. This is, and I'm a former U.S. intelligence officer. This is something I think about a lot. It's something I talk to policymakers a lot. I know for sure this is going to be, for the next 3 to 5 years, one of the biggest issues is how do we have a decentralized system, not only in AI, but other aspects, but how do we have decentralized AI? How do we allow people to use compute and safeguard against illicit actors coming from another place and accessing it? It's something we're working on. One of the things that, like the professor said, is, you know, having a company or somebody like Foundry that's organizing and knows where the compute is coming from sometimes is a helpful step, but it is going to be one of the biggest policy discussions around AI in the next few years.
Well, Kyle, thank you.